So this is my real thoughts on My Little Pony Season 6 Episode 3, The Gift of the Maud Pie. An obvious pun for those of you of the literary background on The Gift of the Magi. A story about two lovers who give up something precious to them to obtain each other gifts, the gifts themselves becoming worthless after the item they gave up was given up. And we see something very similar in this episode. Overall, I found the episode to be okay. Not good, not great, not bad or horrible or terrible, just merely okay. A very middle-of-the-road episode that will become filler if we don't revisit Rarity's dress shop or see the other two sisters celebrate their special vacation with Pinkie Pie in the near future. This, to me, felt like sort of a Season 1 episode, a safe, mild slice-of-life episode where nothing really bad happens and nothing's at stake and you sort of know what's going to go down. No enemies to fight or amazing, fantastic world building. We did get some character development on Maud, on the other hand. Learning some interesting things about her, like how she has a special Maud sense that allows her to locate things that she's looking for. And she shares Pinkie's ability to suddenly teleport to the other side of the screen in the blink of an eye. And we learned other things about Maud, like the fact that Boulder has a cousin, and that, she gave us some other cute little moments along the line. We got to see Rarity do an impersonation of Pinkie Pie that was fun and reminiscent of what we saw her do with Applejack in Simple Ways. And we saw some emotional moments with Pinkie Pie and her willingness to give up her party cannon and how sad she felt for having to give it up, but how she wasn't too sad because at least she had the thing from Maud that she was enjoying. But overall, not a whole lot other than those things came out of this story. A few other points to mention. We see the same ponies on the train that we saw during the Hearth-Swarming Eve episode. And we saw a lot of familiar items in the marketplace sequence, like the Twi cane, the shark plushie that Vinyl Stretch jumped over, the Inspiration Manifestation, and Smarty Pants doll all being thrown in as animation background gags. It sort of makes me feel like the animators just have all these little things that they drew at some time and wanted to throw them into the background again to save them the time and effort of drawing new things. Although you can't criticize them on this point too much because there were indeed some new designs, even if they were just palette swaps of other characters. It was still interesting to see that design pop up on another pony, so we know someone like Bulk Biceps isn't unique to himself and himself only. And we saw a few new pony designs as well. But a lot of old familiar faces in the background, including an appearance from Surrey Polmare, who oddly enough had no influence on the plot and no lines or even an exchange between her and Rarity even. I don't know if the story's going anywhere with that background appearance or not, but it was definitely interesting to see two ponies who know each other across the street from each other and not even recognize or acknowledge each other's presence. The party cannon, I think, was slightly overused, shot off way too many times to overemphasize its importance to the story. After 2 or 3 times, it's like, hey, we get it already. The party cannon is important. At least we got to learn that Maud has skills in ice skating. Another thought occurred to me during this episode is this whole mess could have been avoided if Rarity had offered to sew Maud a rock pouch, or if Pinkie Pie had asked for one to been sewn. If that had happened, we could have either avoided the problem altogether, or at the very least gotten an explanation as to why Rarity couldn't sew the pouch right there at that moment, or why the pouch absolutely had to be bought by Pinkie Pie. We did get an interesting thing from that store being closed, not only avoiding a trip all over Equestria hunting down the owner, like when Pinkie went to Yakistan, but we also, more importantly, I think, we got to see an equestrian police officer. It's nice to see those put into show canon instead of being relegated to comic book canon. We know that now Equestria has, for certain, more forces than just the Royal Guard, implying that ponies can commit crimes and be cuffed, arrested, taken to jail, and who knows what else. The very pairing of Rarity and Pinkie Pie together is something we don't often see that often, as we're accustomed to seeing Rarity with Applejack or Rainbow Dash, and Pinkie Pie with Applejack or Twilight or some other combination along those lines. A Pinkie Pie Rarity combination is somewhat unfrequent. We got a nice reference to the movie Big, as well as references to a few other things. That swan boat that's been hyped up on the toy market and even appeared on the promotional art finally made its appearance in the foreground of the episode. It was on screen enough to be noticed, and it left us briefly. It had no connection to Pinkie Pie being its owner, but we did get a nice joke about her wanting to ride actual swans. It looks like we're not going to get a Disney's Gargoyles style boat adventure of swan boats taking the ponies where they need to be instead of where they want to go, or having any other kind of magical properties. The ponies are not going to all get their own individual boats or what have you. It's just a little foreground thing, and I think the world is better off that we're not adventuring around in different vehicles for each pony. The so-called song that Pinkie Pie sang with Maud wasn't really a song at all. It was just one sentence and one word for Maud in typical Maud style. Very reminiscent of what Pinkie Pie used to do in the beginning of season 1. So we're still waiting for the official first song of season 6. The one moment in this episode that makes me cringe every time I hear it, and I absolutely can't stand this line, is the line of 5 Ever, which is a reference to a video that's popular on the internet that bronies have also made their own variation of.
Girl was walking to school with her BF, and they were crossing the road. She said, "Babies, will you love me forever?" He said, "No." The girl cried and ran across the road before Green Man came on the scene. The boy was crying and went to pick up her body. She was dead. He whispered to her corpse, "I meant to say I will love you 5 ever." That mean he loved her more than 4 ever.
I find this even more annoying than duck faces and selfies and a full of other internet memes that I wish the series would stop using as their source of sense of humor. But unlike last season's duck face, I'm actually more annoyed in 5 ever than I am in things like duck faces and spoiler alerts. Although hearing ponies say spoiler alert still kind of annoys me too, because ponies don't watch TV and don't review things on the internet, and they don't have to worry about spoilers, so why would they say that? I don't know. Some internet memes are just not the right thing to use, especially since in 5 or 10 years no one's going to even know what these references are referencing. Just like when you watch an episode of Tiny Toons and the lingo sounds so incredibly dated. But all of that rant aside, overall this was a okay episode. Not great, not horrible, reminded me a lot of season 1. It'll get a lot more points if we return to some of the things that we started earlier on. It's not even of the quality that I want to sit around watching it again and again in other people's reactions. I like it a great deal better than something like Princess Spite, but it still had those few moments that seemed to get a little boring for me. The whole excitement of it depends completely on things like Maud and Manhattan. And this also makes 3 trips to Manhattan without seeing any mention of Babseed. And this also elevates Maud to the same status as some ponies like Big Mac, a character that we'll see from time to time, but won't be necessarily the focus of the series. But the writers definitely know that the fans appreciate her and want her back from time to time. So, like Big Mac or Discord, we're probably going to see her every season from here on out. At least once a season, maybe even 2 or 3 times a season. But like Big Mac or Discord, or even Coco Pomel, I wouldn't want to see her constantly, or else the novelty would probably wear off. Anyhow, that's all the thoughts I really have time for. Now, to wrap things up, and we'll get back on this next week. Thank you for watching, and good night.